Hello, everybody. Welcome to a live stream and a new episode of Hardly Kayfabe, your home for pro wrestling talk right here on the network. My name is Matt Johnson, one of your hosts, alongside, as always, from the world of Matt Groening and The Simpsons. We got Christopher Chavez over here.
What's
going
up,
on, Chris?
What's up?
And then all the way down in Johnny Land, Mr. Johnny Townsend. Johnny, welcome back another week. I appreciate you being here, spending time with us here on Hardly Kayfabe.
Like from here to here looks acceptable, but I just want everybody to know that below here is just like an atrocity to humankind.
That's basically
not allowed.
Johnny.
And probably not allowed in most states.
That's basically anybody in a Zoom meeting anymore.
I'm not allowed in Wyoming. Like, I can't go back to Wyoming anymore for some reason. I don't want to get into it.
Well, for those who are watching via the live stream, you'll notice that there's this stranger next to me. I don't know who he is. He just followed me into the office space. No, in all actuality, this strange creature next to me with a beard is one of my best friends. He is a professional wrestler and a good human being, most importantly. Everybody, welcome to the show, Vince Valor. Yeah, we'll just go by that. We won't acknowledge your government name. We won't acknowledge your government name. But Vince, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for joining myself and the boys.
I'm glad to be on. I'm not used to these little Zoom meetings or the Facebook Lives or anything. So, I mean, it's fun, but it leaves the mystery who's wearing pants and who's not. I mean, you have rules here in the studio. You're breaking them, but, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have some fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice.
Matt, in fairness, Matt and I have this pact where if one of us isn't wearing pants, the other one cannot wear pants either.
You guys have that too, huh?
Yeah. 100%. So if I start to stand up, let me know. I don't want anything flopping around on camera.
I'm glad to be on because I know you guys had Chris go on last week, and I thought you guys would just call it quits after that.
Yeah. No, we had to. We're making our rounds. We know we've had Greg on, Chris. I think that might be, as far as the local wrestling scene, that might be it to this point.
Yeah.
Be the one to kill it.
Yeah. take her out back and just bam. But we are glad. We're glad you were with us today. The boys want to ask you some questions. We got some topics and stuff to talk about. Do we want to start off with news, or do we want to get right into it with Vince?
I say we do news first, and then we just take whatever's left and have some fun with Vince if he will allow us.
I'm here for it.
Let's do it.
Let's
I'm
do it.
here for it. Let's start off today, or excuse me, not today. Yesterday, May 23rd, the 21st anniversary of the death of Owen Hart.
Yeah.
Owen Hart, as we all know, tragically fell from the ring, and just this past week, Dark Side of the Ring had a little special on it. Very, very insightful, very, very good. But it's definitely something I wanted to acknowledge on this show because, well, growing up, Owen Hart, well, even still to this day, Owen Hart, probably one of my top 5, if not top 10 wrestlers of all time. I always thought he was better than Brett. And I remember where I was that day. I was upset, man. I never experienced anything like that as a fan of wrestling, especially Owen Hart, who, comes off as such a wonderful human being. First off, as just a pro wrestler, then you go and watch this Dark Side of the Ring video and you're seeing all the behind the scenes stuff, and he really, truly, genuinely was a great person.
Yeah.
It hurts and think, what would have been if he had been around just a few more years later. Some of the matches with some of the athletes, how great would it have been? They did touch up on the end of the video, but
I think it was.
The part that hits most is. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Vince. Sorry.
I think that's the part that hits most is like how they talk about towards the end is like had he been around, like what matches could have been, like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, those kind of matches. But they also talked about earlier on too, like how like he wanted to get out at an early enough age. So who's to say how long his run would have lasted? Me personally, I couldn't see him lasting much longer than the Invasion era for where he was going. But
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Actually, I was gonna say it's kind of sad because. When you see that was his plan, and I think I had heard it before. It wasn't just from this. I think I had read it somewhere or heard it on another documentary about his life. But he had always been about his family and had always been about, like, I want to get in, get as much as I can out of it quick and out early enough so that he wasn't one of these old guys, that was not able to play with his kids in the yard. So that's the thing that makes it sadder to me, because it was starting to, I mean, the Attitude Era was coming in, and you could tell he was kind of uncomfortable with a lot of what they were doing anyway. And so to go back to, the Blue Blazer, and then and the reason he's doing it is to hold on, to stay and make sure he can continue to get that paycheck to build to the goal of getting out and spending time with his family. So to know that he's doing this, and he's putting himself in positions where he's not even comfortable because he's just wanting to get out and be with his family. It's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Well, they acknowledged that they didn't really even have anything for him.
Right.
I mean, they put this amazing worker behind a mask, and even though we all knew it was him, but still, it's he was apparently, and it seems like he was universally loved. I have yet to hear anybody mention a bad thing about him, and that's pretty incredible. Not only just in the wrestling business, but just in life.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's pretty amazing. And the thing that really stood out to me in that documentary, it was the fact that some of the Hart family almost shunned her and his son.
Mm-hmm.
That part, for whatever reason, really stuck to me. Like, I was like, man, like, I get that Vince McMahon is kind of your livelihood. I get that, but there's some things that you got to stand by the family with, and this seemed like one of those to me.
Yeah, it's rough, man.
It is, because it was completely like an unnecessary stunt. Like, they showed the little clip. They showed the little clip in the video of what was holding him. And that thing was so light. Like, I think 6 pounds of pressure and it releases or something like that.
Oh, man.
Oh, so bad. It's so bad. It's tough. And there are definitely two sides. I mean, there's two weird ways to handle it, right? There is the Martha side of it, where she doesn't want WWE to have the satisfaction of even acknowledging, him, putting him, up in the bright lights because they did. Their misuse and just unresponsibility, I guess, is what killed him. But the other side too, the fans, the fans who love Owen and respect his game and everything that he, everything that he brought to the business, just to be admired. It's such a weird debate, but I can definitely understand both sides of it.
Yeah, I get it too. But he is in other Hall of Fames, though, right? I believe he is.
I believe I think they have a regular Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I know
they went in 2018 for that.
Did he?
Yeah.
Is that the one they run out of Albany?
I believe so.
Okay, they do one that runs out of Albany. I did one of their Hall of Fame shows before, and I would imagine he's got to be in that one. Yeah. But they will not let WWE touch him, and it's fair. It's fair.
I think it's her call. Honestly, it's her and his son's call. If they're cool with it, then sure. If they're not, then I'm going to respect their wishes. I loved Owen Hart, but he wasn't my dad, and he wasn't my significant other, so I can't even imagine what it was like for them.
I think that what happens with the as far as like the brothers, like Brett, obviously, and some of the other family that have spoken out about it, I think it's more about the last name than it is about like the Hart legacy versus actually being about Owen Hart, maybe, directly about Owen Hart, where I'm more so on the Martha, the immediate family side of things with it, the Martha and his son and his daughter and all that. But that's just me.
Yeah. How many years did you say was it yesterday?
It was 21 years,
wow.
1999.
Good Lord, dude. 99 was 21 years ago? Oh, my God. That's even worse. I'm getting old.
I had just turned 8 years old.
That's nuts, man. Time flies.
I was still in school. I was still in the first grade at age 17. Trying my best.
Doing your best.
Which is good for North Carolina, to be fair to me.
No, that's what we hear up here in New York.
It's all true.
But unfortunately, on that token, there was a couple tragic deaths this week. in the world of pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's
first
sad
one
that's
hit
the
us-
news, man. It's sad that the news that's
It
really
is.
hitting us is sad news. Because I mean, there was a pay-per-view. I think we were discussing it before. There was a pay-per-view last night. I didn't watch it yet, but I didn't really see too much on social media about it either. So I'm not sure how it went off or how it went, but overall news has been slow aside from these sad things, really.
Yes. Yeah, it's
I've
just
seen
one
the
thing after
results,
another.
but everybody seems to be a little too preoccupied over the deaths that have had, and speak to where they're like, the pay-per-view isn't really their focus right now. They're still mourning that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, without a doubt. And we did want to touch up on those. The first one that happened this week, I think it was officially declared Wednesday, was Shad Gaspard, the former member of Crime Time. This one, that was tough. It was tough, but there's no buts. He went out like a
Hero.
like a hero.
Yeah.
Protecting his son, saving his son's life over his. They were swimming down in, what was it?
Venice Beach.
It was Venice Beach.
Yep.
Riptide came in, sucked him out, and then a lifeguard came and he's like, save my son. And then Chad, unfortunately, his body did end up turning up this week, but just truly, truly unfortunate. You know, I've heard a lot of good personal stories about Chad over the last couple weeks, or excuse me, the last week, ever since everything happened. You know, you and I, Vince, we're friends with Colin Delaney.
Yeah.
Colin Delaney, who was in WWE's version of ECW for a brief stint when Crime Time was around, and Colin shared some words about how Shad pulled him aside. It was after Colin had gotten released. The boys were in Rochester, and Shad just talked to him and just talked him up about pro wrestling and this and that. And that's not like the only story. I mean, that's one we can, we're like, oh wow, he legit is a great dude. But so many people pouring in this week, over Twitter and Facebook and this and that about how good of a person Shad was, and it's just unfortunate, man. 2020 has been it's been a real kick in the ass. It hasn't been very pleasant, and this one hurt. One hurt.
It's a shame that it takes things like this to bring the wrestling community together, like for everybody to show their support for that kind of stuff. Like I know Collar and Elbow released a T-shirt to benefit Shad's family during this time. There's a GoFundMe out there, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, then I think I seen John Cena donated like $40,000.
Well, it's left anonymous, but everybody just goes to believe it's John Cena because of. I think it was CTC RIP was the name they left underneath there. But
Okay.
You can't see it either way.
Yeah. There you go.
No, but that's 100% it's 100% the truth though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the wrestling community is a very weird place. We see it at the independent level all the time. Myself and Vince do. We see it on the national level.
See it on social media, even
social
man.
media,
Wrestling
it's
social media is
terrible.
insane. But
It's
it has
terrible.
this past week. It's so like if you're a part of social media, wrestling social media. My Twitter is predominantly wrestling, right? Like I follow a lot of wrestlers.
Yeah.
I tweet a lot of wrestling. I retweet a lot of wrestling. So I see a lot of what people are doing. And there's so much shade being thrown. There's so much garbage sometimes, toxicity. But then something like this happens, and it's like what Vince says. It's right. It kind of pulls everybody together to remember, first of all, the love that we have for this, right, for professional wrestling, but the people that make it up, right? And it's these kinds of people that you come in contact with that remind you of the good, that what you enjoyed about it at the beginning. And it's sad, like you said. I don't think it's like the Owen Hart thing, and it's not because you can't speak ill of the dead, because people will nowadays anyway on social, but I've not seen one thing yet where this guy has not been a stand-up guy, a class guy, loved his family, loved the people he worked with. I think I saw something where he was talking about the person that worked with him was a smaller guy and talked about how Shad went out of his way to take care of him in the ring. You know what I mean? Like, it was just this is the guy that should represent what wrestling means.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, a lot of times those guys get overshadowed until something like this, tragically happens.
Yeah.
It speaks more of the human being as more than it does the wrestler. Like, not at all that Shad Gaspard wasn't a great wrestler, but like, how many people are answering out there? Who's your favorite of all time? Oh, Shad Gaspard. Like,
Right.
Like people remember him more for being the great person that he is, and like that over in ring stuff. Not that he was bad in the ring at all, but like. It's more. I think that's what hits most hard is how it happened in the situation of it. He's trying to protect his son.
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah,
So
and-
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and I've heard, you'll see things come out, and I don't know. For me, I feel like sometimes the term hero gets thrown around too easily anymore. But in this case, like this is when you use the word hero. This is, gave his life so his son could live. He really did. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
no going
and-
around it.
And he's had
That's
a history.
the ultimate sacrifice. That's the ultimate sacrifice right
And
there.
he's even had a history of doing the right thing, being a hero. I mean, this wasn't the first time that he put his life in jeopardy. He stopped a robbery at some point.
That's right. That was a
yeah.
couple years ago. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I'm more sad that I never got to meet him than anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say.
Did he ever
And-
come through ESW?
No, but I talked with Gullo. He says he's shared a locker room with him once and has nothing but great things to say about him.
So
Anybody that you come across, like, they have nothing bad to say about him. Like, and I think like looking into next year, like the Hall of Fame, like I think this is the kind of thing. Somebody mentioned it recently. This is the kind of thing that the Warrior Award was made for. I would absolutely
go.
put that on Chad this year.
yeah.
Yep,
That's
100.
a great idea. That's a great
100.
idea. You know, one death is hard enough, but unfortunately there was another, and it was I can't pronounce her name. I apologize, but we did have a wrestler just I think it was yesterday evening, 2 nights ago. Japanese wrestler. What's
Hana Kimura, I believe.
okay? She committed suicide. Unfortunately, 22 years young, and gone. Taken. Online cyberbullying kind of led to it.
And that's the negative power that social media has. On
Yeah.
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah, that's
Really
100%
does.
true. You know, we see it all the time, and unfortunately, a lot of people I have seen a lot of people who tend to be cyber bullies, being the ones who are like stop cyberbullying, which is ironic. I just wish that we would live this more often, right? It shouldn't take this
Mm-mm.
to happen. It's just, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, there's never a good time for this. But yeah, I mean, the wrestling community has really been hit hard. They're trying hard to stay afloat with everything going on with COVID, with not being able to put on shows like they want to, or need to stay afloat in a lot of cases. This week has been another tough one. It just seems like it's been just Gatling gun, just one thing after another. You know, and unfortunately, yeah. I mean, so far, all the news, everything we've talked about, death in pro wrestling, and it's one of the saddest. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. And I think the aspects of not only she took her own life, which is sad enough, but the reasoning behind it, you know, you never know truly what somebody's going through, right? You never know what they're personally dealing with. And anything you can say to them, even if you're a stranger, even if they don't know you, can affect somebody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
Easily.
so much power in words, and we just throw words around like they're nothing.
Yeah,
And
That's not the case. It's sad and tragic. When I was younger, I was probably one of those people who would like say negative things if I thought it was funny about somebody. You know, I'd put somebody down if I thought it was really funny. But now I really try to think about, you know, if it's funny, sure, but you know, how's this person going to take this? You know,
Right.
yeah, and I
it can
think
go too far.
I think what happens too is a lot of times people forget that these performers, these athletes are people. They're regular people too. They still have feelings. They still have fears. They still have insecurities. And so it's almost like because a fan looks at this person like they're a larger than life, character or person, that they should be able to take it, right? They should be able to take that kind of abuse, and it's kind of sick. You've seen it all over the place on the indie scene where fans kind of get out of hand. They get out of line. They throw things or they reach out and take a swing or do something stupid. But it's because there's this perception that you're untouchable, almost like you're a larger than life character. So you should be able to take what you can't take me. You can take a power bomb off the top rope, but you can't take words coming out of my mouth. You know what I mean? And people have to realize that it's not good, man. It's not good. You gotta. It's like you said, Johnny, man. You got to remember everybody's dealing with something.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. So yeah, rough week in that. Was there any other news we wanted to touch up on?
No.
I also saw the results for AEW's pay-per-view last night. I saw some. I haven't watched the whole show, but I have seen clips and stuff from it. It looked like it was apparently a fairly good show overall. I saw mostly positive feedback from it. on Twitter.
That
and
was cool.
such.
They did it at the stadium. They did it at the football
Yeah.
stadium.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of great
Oh,
things
neat.
about that Stadium Stampede match.
So-
I've yet to watch it, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Matt Hardy had a lot of fun. There's a great clip of him being that they did with him when he was getting dunked in the pool. So some really good stuff, really fun stuff.
I saw
but
a
yeah,
photo of him as the version 1 character. I was like,
Yeah.
is this really what they're going? All right.
he would get dunked in the pool, and then when he come back up, he'd come up as a different version of Matt.
Get out.
So it happened a couple times. It was pretty great.
Oh, this is so good.
Yeah,
That's so
it
good.
was pretty great.
Have you guys caught the any of the last ride yet? The Taker series.
Oh, I love it.
He's been putting it over big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
second
I'm
episode
glad
was
you said
great.
that. I'm glad you said that. Undertaker, or I should say, he appeared as Mark, I should say.
Yeah.
On the Bill Simmons podcast, which is one that I listen to a lot. I like Bill Simmons. He usually talks about basketball, but he also loves pro wrestling. And he had the Undertaker on there, who just talked about his career for like an hour and a half as Mark, and it was fascinating. It was beyond fascinating to hear him talk like that, because I'm just so used to, like, I grew up with the Undertaker being the Undertaker. He never broke character ever.
It's also very well known that he doesn't do podcast. Like, he doesn't do that
Right.
kind of a thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a good listen. I'd definitely recommend it. He talks about everything from the match with Mick Foley to like his match with Roman Reigns, where he felt like he let Roman Reigns down.
Oh yeah,
so-
if you watch the series, there's a you watch him watch it. The first time he's watching the actual match with Roman, and then later there's a time where he gets a chance to talk to Roman, and he apologizes. He's just like, I'm really sorry, I was not at my best, kind of a thing. And Roman's trying to be like, oh, don't worry about it, we've all been there. But you can tell it's really eating Taker up. Like, he does not like that he
yeah.
did not get a chance to put him over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he wanted to take pride in putting Roman over.
Yeah.
He felt like he really let him down. But yeah, he comes off very well in the interview too, I thought. And he deals with a lot of, speaking of online toxicity, he deals with quite a lot too, because he just recently joined like Instagram and stuff, like very recently. And apparently his wife like gets a lot of hate because she happens to be married to him.
Oh,
And his
jeez.
kids, and he has kids, and it's like blowing people's minds, so they're mad about it. Like, he's a dude. I mean, I know we think he's a dead man.
Did you really think he was a dead man from Parts Unknown? I mean,
Yeah.
give me a break.
I mean, get over yourself.
And I think that's what's so big about it, is like that's what we've believed for so long, is that like
Yeah.
the Undertaker is just the Undertaker. Like, we've never seen him open up like this. Like,
Yeah.
and like this is something that's been in the works for a while. Like, they started this back in 2017, right after the Roman Reigns match.
Mm-hmm.
It was big then too. Like, I think it was the first time I saw that he did the podcast on the network with Stone Cold. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's huge. Like, it's a big deal like that, because you never seen the Undertaker break character that way.
No.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a scene in that last ride where they're at the hotel, at the counter at the hotel, and it's right before his match with Roman. And Roman comes up to him and just starts talking to him and laughing, and he looks at him. He's like, "God damn, can't you just stick to kayfabe for 1 minute? Like, can't you just, So yeah,
You can
he's
see
an
in his
old.
face that he's legit upset about that.
Yeah, he's an old schooler, dude. He's got that old school kind of like, you don't break it, man. You do your best not to break it when you're in public. But it's definitely good. It's definitely good.
And I just want to take this moment publicly to say to the Undertaker that, Mr. Undertaker, sir, I forgive you for Limp Bizkit's Rollin', Rollin', Rollin'. I publicly forgive you for that song. I don't blame you for it. That's all on Limp Bizkit now, as far as I'm concerned.
That's funny. That's got to be intense, right? Because like you were saying, Vince, this started 2017, 18, whenever it was. He made the decision that, yes, let's do this. Let's start documenting my life. Let's start documenting these things. So that leads me to ask this. So Vince, you're a professional wrestler. We were saying you wrestle. You run most locally here in Western New York. You're part of ESW, Empire State Wrestling. You already know what that's like to train, to put in the work, to have shows, to get on the road. How much more would this be if somebody was following you around all the time, from the moment you wake up, camera in your face, to the time you're trying to go to bed, while you're in the bathroom, while you're on the phone? Like, that's intense, man.
Yeah, I mean, people handle it differently. Some people would I think they would love the attention of it. Others would like not want to be bothered, and that's the way Undertaker was for so long. Like,
Yeah.
I could see him being like, okay, I want to keep character, but I also don't want to be bothered by this stuff. And I've seen other documentaries too, where like they just don't want nothing to do with the cameras, but others embrace it, like they enjoy it.
I have a confession to make. Vince.
You're not wearing pants?
No. I've been following you around with a camera, and you have an OnlyFans account that you never knew about. That's why. That's why we have the studio.
I was going to say, how do you think Matt's funding the studio?
Yeah.
Is that what you got the casting couch over there for?
Yeah, that's exactly,
Man.
what it is.
Pray
That's
to God
awesome.
pray to God you don't have a black light.
In the closet over here.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But yeah,
so I
let's.
think, I mean, that's it's a perfect segue to get into talking about Vince. And
Just before that
go
Undertaker
ahead.
stuff closes, like,
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that sounds, but I really feel like episode 5 concludes with his official retirement. I feel like that's where this is going, and it's a tough pill to swallow, but I feel like that's what they're leaning towards.
I think
This
so,
is his
dude.
way of like letting everybody know, like, goodbye. This is it.
Yeah, I think that's obviously right. The title, The Last Ride, I think is a piece of it. But also, we saw a lot of, because he did, after that whole Reigns thing, he did come back with a strong showing. But then again, he had a couple of like really kind of sad showings recently that I feel like this is kind of that, the way of getting there.
Goldberg. Sorry,
But they did some
I'm
stuff
good.
with Drew McIntyre on I think it was last year, and he showed hope that he could still go. But then you look at the Boneyard match, and like it's tough to say how that would have went had it been in a normal environment, like at WrestleMania in front of a crowd. Like they wouldn't have been able to pull off the cinematic match that was. But he says a lot in this documentary, like, I want to go out with a match that's befitting of the Undertaker at WrestleMania. And everybody spoke so highly of the Boneyard match, so it leads me to believe, like, okay, that's it. But now let's let the fans know that, like, okay, this is what led up to that, and this is my goodbye to you. Like,
Yeah, good point. It's coming. We're gonna have to accept it, right? But then again, how long does he stay away? Every time, it's a wrestler's thing, I guess, because you see it with many of them. They say they're done, and then it calls. There's something about it that says.
He has a lifetime contract. I just seen. They just gave him a lifetime. It's like a 20+ year contract where they just own him. Right. I mean,
wow.
Obviously they're going to be paying him good money for it, but this is probably, I mean, it's kind of smart on the WWE's part. Like,
he'll always do his part. I feel like you're not going to get
but you're not.
the WrestleMania matches out of the Undertaker every year, but every so often, you'll hear and see the entrance, and do the eyes, and then he goes back to being Mark, and
Yeah.
No, that's true. But I think because didn't they? Because one of those Starcast thing, was it Starcast? They tried to book him,
and he'd signed at
I think
first.
they
He
made
came,
him and then WWE made him pull him out. So I think that's why they did that. So WWE is always going to make money off of him. We're never going to see a Mark Calloway appearance in AEW. We're never going to see a Starcast thing. More likely than not. So,
I feel like that pisses all of his legacy if you were to do like AEW or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And also, I don't know if this is in the Last Ride doc because I haven't got a chance to watch it, but I know during an interview on the Bill Simmons podcast, he came off like he would talk about Vince McMahon because of course he's going to get asked about McMahon, and he spoke incredibly highly of McMahon. Like apparently they're real friends in real life. And he comes off very loyal too.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Vince is very loyal to him too. There's a scene in this where they interview Vince, for the documentary. He's sitting there and they say, "Tell us, what does Mark or what does Undertaker mean to you?" And he sits there and his eyes start tearing up. And then he swallows and he tries to compose himself and he's going to start talking, and then it's more tears, and then he's just like, nope, walks off.
Yeah.
Doesn't do it.
Which is funny because he's got the exact opposite reaction when asked about his son Shane. He's just like, "What did he jump off this week?"
Oh, that's amazing.
That's
It's a
true,
good
but,
series so far, but definitely if you get a chance, check out the first two, and I think the third one comes out today as of this recording.
Yeah, excellent. So let's talk a little bit about the life and times of Vince Valor.
Yes, the life and times of a wrestler, a real
How
life
long do
wrestler.
we have?
Get your life story.
Oh, jeez.
So Vince, I've known you a long time, very long time, and I'll tell everybody on the recording, when I first met you, I hated your guts.
I know you did.
We've established this. When I first met Vince, all right, he was this little juvenile delinquent. All right,
Weren't we all?
he got a cell phone, and that was it. He got his first cell phone, and he'd make prank calls. He'd order pizzas. He'd send them random places. He'd pick random
Don't give me
fights.
your address.
No addresses. He picked fights with people at Walmart, and like you meet me up at Walmart. We'll fight and this and that. We'd go to McDonald's. No, he called McDonald's and he asked for about a McPenis fillet. And
I was just a boy. What do you want?
you still do that to this day. But so little embarrassment to set him up. But so it took me a long time to get accustomed to Vince. But eventually,
Never order pizza to your house.
no.
You would have enjoyed it anyway. Oh, pizza. All right.
Isn't that like isn't that like the greatest prank? Like all of a sudden you got pizza. Like thank you. Yeah. Prank me like that any day of the week.
It was always taxis that I would do, and I would tell the taxi company, like, I'm a little hard of hearing, so if I don't hear it, can you lay on the horn or come to the door?
Delinquent.
That's amazing.
But eventually I did warm up to Vince, and we had this backyard wrestling thing. We used to do it. We used to on a trampoline, and I won't discuss his in-ring name at that time. But I mean, that's kind of where mine and Vince's history goes. But I mean, for like you, Vince, like when for you did you okay, I want to start actually doing pro wrestling. Like I want to give this a run. When did that first click, or what made that click for you?
I think it was like around that time we had gotten really close to over the backyard wrestling stuff. Like we wrestled on the trampoline, and then that's when we started to take it a little more seriously. It's like, okay, this is fun, but let's take it a step further. And I think it was a girl you were dating at the time. She had sort of, she was probably sleeping with one of the boys. Let's be honest. She had some sort of connection to where she knew about a place to train. So it was you and I and about 8 or 10 others. We would cram on into your little Nissan Altima all the time, and
It was so bad.
we're sleeping in the trunk on the way up to the school. But we found the Kayfabe dojo in Rochester.
How old are you guys?
I was 19, so
I was
just turned
17,
18.
just turning 18.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize you had to be 18 at the time. I had no idea. So like a week before I turned 18, I was starting training. But you went a step further with that. You moved out to Rochester. You spent your time out there. It didn't last long for me there. I wanted to, if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it right. And I had so much on my plate at the time. I was working full time. I was in a relationship. I was doing school. I wanted to make wrestling my focus because it's what I loved for a very long time. So I wanted to do it right, and that's where I found somewhere closer to home in the Neo Wrestling Dojo that was in Niagara Falls, Ontario. So I crossed the border about 3 or 4 times a week and trained there. My head trainer was Tiberius King, JT Playa, whatever anybody knows him as, and he's someone I owe everything to. Like I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for him. And like it was great there too because like it wasn't just him training. We had a lot of drop bys from a lot of good names. Yeah, from a lot of the best wrestlers of Canada who've gone on to reach great success. We had Sean Spears coming up regularly. We were able to sit in the locker room and listen and learn and watch from guys like Tyson Dukes or Cody Deaner or Jake O'Reilly. Like, and around that time, those guys were like they were the elite talent in Canada. So it was great to be able to learn from those guys. And like I'm very appreciative. I'm grateful of like the opportunities I've had because of Neo Wrestling. Like I owe everything to Jesse for training me to who I am.
So you're saying you were into, I mean, this was something you've loved for a while. How far back does wrestling come into your life? When do you remember your first experiences with wrestling?
I mean, anybody that's asked us, they always have the cliche answer. Oh, I crawled up to the TV and I saw Hulk Hogan slam onto the Giant. From there, I was hooked, brother. It's like, come on. Like, I feel like everybody answers that way because I feel like that's how they're supposed to answer. But that's not the same story for everybody.
Yeah.
For me, it was my mother. Like, my mother's responsible for getting me into wrestling, and she doesn't even know it because she brought me and my sister to this daycare, and the kids there loved it. That's what they did. They had all the video games, all the action.
I was gonna say baby pro wrestling club at the daycare.
I was like 6 or 5.
Like a little fight club.
Like,
A backyard.
Yeah, that's what it turned out to be. We would go down to the basement, and we'd wrestle with each other, and like I got put in a timeout there, and like when it was time to go home, they had to explain that to my mom. Like, yeah, you had to go in timeout today because downstairs wrestling. Like, oh, great. I'm gonna get in trouble when I get home, but like my mother wanted to fight it, but she couldn't because like anytime I would get birthday money or gift cards or anything, I wanted to spend it on wrestling toys, wrestling video games, anything. So she saw how much I love this and how passionate I was about it. And then I didn't really get into watching it until like my mother's always been very supportive of me. She's always bragged about her son's a wrestler. So she would go to work and talk about this stuff. Like, yeah, Vince is into wrestling now. And like there was a guy there that was really into it. So he would order every one of the pay-per-views, and he'd record it on the VHS tape at the time, and he'd bring it to work the next day. So that's how I got my fix of being able to watch it. Like,
That's awesome.
so I wasn't like everybody.
What year was that around?
Oh, probably around like 97, 98. I was 90s baby, so I grew up like in
Yeah.
the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Although I wasn't allowed to watch it every week on TV, I was able to like watch the pay-per-views and play the video games, and like that's where my love for wrestling really grew.
Nice.
But like everybody has like their favorites that they talk about at the time, and like it's a very cliche answer. Like everybody says, "Oh, Hulk Hogan, Happy Hook brother, Stone Cold Steve Austin." But like what memories do they really have of that? They always give the same answer of like he stunned Vince McMahon or he slammed onto the Giant. For me, it was a little different. Like it wasn't any certain match that dragged me, and I was drawn to The Rock for whatever reason, and like I understand like everybody loves The Rock. He was on top at that time, but it was. For whatever reason, I found him so entertaining. It was a promo that he cut on Billy Gunn, where Billy Gunn was praying to God at the time, and he was praying to God. It was like God comes on and says, "Bob, no, my name's Billy. It doesn't matter what your name is." Like stuff like that. It was so entertaining to me. I was like, I love The Rock. Like this is cool. Like I love The Rock. We talked about the Undertaker. Like as a kid, I believed. I was afraid of the Undertaker. I was afraid of Kane. Like,
oh yeah,
and that's what made you believe, and that's what made Undertaker so successful. Is like he wanted people to be afraid of him, and damn sure I was afraid of him. Like,
yeah, for sure.
But like as I grew older, I always loved The Rock, but like I was able to appreciate like other wrestlers as I'm able to grow up more. Like appreciate like sometimes you'll be able to appreciate them when it's too late, like after they retire or after they pass. But like it's.
Now, Vince. Me and you've known each other. We go back about 30 minutes ago.
About 20 minutes.
Yeah. So I feel like I know you very well. I think this kind of goes out to all to everybody here. Really, do you remember the time? Because I remember this definitely because I grew up a wrestling fan too. But I remember when I found out that it was, that it wasn't kayfabe. I found out that
fake.
I'm not.
Is that what you're saying? It's fake.
It's
You're
real to me.
fake?
It's real to me. Damn it! I refuse to say that F word. That 4-letter F word will never come out of my mouth describing wrestling. But I remember when I discovered that, and it for whatever reason actually made me love it more. So I was just wondering if you guys remember that and how it kind of affected you, especially Matt and Vince, because you guys actually got into the business.
It's like I never wanted to believe it. Like I always heard that when I was growing up. Oh, you watch that fake stuff. They're all play fighting. Like I just never wanted to believe it because I believed in it so much because what I saw on TV they made me believe, and I think that's what's lost now today. Everything gets so torn down that they don't make you believe in what they're doing. Like you'll see guys having a match, and then in the locker room after they're taking pictures together, you see them doing shots at the bar together. Like that's what draws me so much to guys like the Undertaker is because he makes you believe. Like. And like that's such a lost art now. But like growing up all that time, I heard like it's fake. You really want to do that fake stuff? You really love that fake stuff? It's like it's not fake to me. Like maybe it's like it's an art form. It's entertainment like anything else. Like I understand this gets thrown a lot too. Movies aren't fake. Movies are fake. Like it's wrestling's along those same lines. Like it's done safely. It's not done to kill each other, obviously. But like that's where the fake rumor comes in. It's like. Everybody thinks because they're not actually killing each other that it's got to be fake. Like,
yeah, I remember a little bit when I finally like realized it. Like my dad was really good about letting me believe it for as long as I could, and then there came a point in time where I was just like, "How is this? That dude just got thrown off like a building the other night, and he's walking around now. He's okay. He's competing." What's going on?
Mysterio got thrown off the roof and he wrestled the next day.
Yeah, I know, and he lost tonight.
Yeah.
But that was.
He took the
I mean,
old
that's a
Big
very
Show
good question.
He took the old Big
I think
Show.
it was
Now he's just fine.
Yeah, yeah, but I think it was probably around like I was a late bloomer, like I was with realizing a lot of things were the way that they were. It was probably about like 03. It was probably about 2003. Once I started reading again, all right, figured. Books, encouraging reading. Then I start reading books like Kurt Angle's book and Triple H's book and Ric Flair's book, and I'm just like, damn, I shouldn't have read that.
Those are the only books I'll read.
Those are, I mean, they're great books. I reread them all the time too. But that's kind of when I realized it, and I'm not gonna say it was like okay, I can do this with these guys, but it did make me appreciate the art form a little bit more. It's like, because now when you hear that, it's like, well, how did they do that? What's the secret? It's like when people watch Magic,
Yes.
not Magic the Gathering, but actually like Magic. Like, how did that performer do that? And a good magician never reveals the secrets. The only way you can find out is if you get in the business. That's kind of what me and Vince did of it, eventually.
Yeah.
So
And that's what opens you up more to it. Like everybody calls it fake, but what to you is fake about it? Like in the ring, because the more like you mentioned reading books and we watch these documentaries, everything's real.
Mm-hmm.
The injuries, like I have a metal plate in my wrist from this. Like the time spent away from my family, like having to juggle a job because you can't work Saturdays, like all that stuff is real. Like having to like just the hours spent on the road, like missing out on family parties, funerals, like weddings, everything. Like that's not fake at all. Like nothing that we put into this is fake. Like the money lost, the money spent to invest in yourself in order to become better. Like, is that fake to you? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, watch Mick Foley like throw his body around and tell him it's fake, and watch how he had to walk, like how he walked afterwards.
Yeah. No
Tell him
kidding.
that it's
and
fake.
like I'm not
It's-
one of those wrestlers that gets triggered by it. Like, oh, I know everybody thinks it's fake. I'm not the one of those ones that's gonna like defend it. Like, oh no, you're wrong. Like, I'm not gonna get all upset
You're
about
not
it.
gonna
but, like,
you're not
you're
gonna
not
slap
slapping
a news reporter
reporters.
if they come up to you and ask. Yeah.
You're not going to pull a
I
Hogan.
always
And,
think like, oh, I saw a documentary once. I read in the news once. Wrestling's fake. You really like that stuff? Come on, I enjoy it. I love it. Everybody's passionate about something. Like, don't crap on me for it. Like,
So was this one of these things that from as a kid being in love with it already, like you wanted to do it, you knew you wanted to do it, or how old were you when you're like, I want to do this, I want to try this?
I think it was like I always loved it. Like, I mean, I hate to say that kind of stuff, but like growing up, I did love it. Like, I never really thought to myself like I want to do that. But even like my mom threw this back in my face. She was like, I found this note that you wrote in kindergarten. Like they asked you like what you want to do when you grow up, and I said I wrote in that I had no recollection of this. I wrote and I wanted to go to the WWF. I was like, wow, like I really said this. I really wanted to do this as a kid, and I don't know. It wasn't until I became of age and like I really like formed this friendship with Matt more, and we like you said, we backyard wrestled, but we talked more about that. Like, what if we actually did this? Like, and that's where we found the school in Rochester, and that's where things started took off. But it wasn't until I became of age, and like it was around that time I was close to graduating high school. Like there was that one match like that really made me feel like, okay, this is awesome. I want to do that. Like, and it was Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. And like that match to me is one of the greatest of all time, if not the. But then I saw that and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I started to follow it a little more, started to research how to do this. And then they did it again the following year, WrestleMania 26. And now I was like, okay, this is what we're doing now. Like I need to pursue this. Like the reaction and the emotion put into those two matches. Like I want to feel that. I want to, like, I've been passionate about this my whole life. I want to go further with this. And
Because we watched that. I think we watched
You came
26
over
at
to my
your
house for
house.
it, yeah.
Yeah, you mean our friend Billy.
Yeah.
We watched it at his place. I do remember that. It was pretty spectacular.
And like that was like perfect timing. It was like I saw those two matches and it was around that age, but that became like okay, like I'm graduating high school soon. I need to plan after this. I didn't want to like I went to college for a bit. I didn't want to. That wasn't my passion. Like my passion was wrestling, so I ditched school to the side and thought like this is my career path. This is what I want to do. 10 years later, here we are. So,
Now, did you play football or did you wrestle in high school or anything like that?
I didn't wrestle in high school. Matt did. All my friends did. I was friends with a lot of the wrestlers, but like I like to eat. Like I couldn't. Like sometimes they would come to lunch and they'd have bottled water for lunch. Oh, I gotta make weights. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to eat my pizza. I want to enjoy like what I'm eating. Like
I don't miss that, and that's why I look the way that I do right now.
that's why you just wanted to order sub.
So when you go and you start training for the first time, right? So if you're not used to something like that as a football player or a wrestler, because a lot of times you'll see these guys go into wrestling, right? And because they're already physical, they already have kind of an understanding of what they're getting themselves into. What's that like, dude? What's that like after your first training or your first couple? Are you just kind of like, what the hell did I do to myself?
We were scared.
Yeah, we're frightened. Like,
We were a little frightened because the first. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off. I mean, me and him had the same first day, because you drove up. Didn't your car like shut down? We ran through a puddle and it shut down in the middle of Rochester.
I hated that drive
but
so much.
the first day was all bumps, like learning how to fall properly.
And you'll have to do it like 100 times before you get it right. They like you can't move on until you get that part right. That's the most important part of wrestling is protecting yourself and safety. They want to make sure you're bumping safely and running the rope safely and doing all that stuff safely. because these guys training you, they're like down the line, you're going to have to wrestle one of them, and they're putting their livelihood in your hands. They want to make sure that who they're training is safe and enough to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But like playing those sports growing up, like I played football, so like it teaches you to have discipline and like to be able to handle this kind of stuff. But we trained in Rochester, and then like I went on to my training in Canada. Like, so I already had a bit of an understanding of how this is done, but like it's different than watching on TV and actually being in a ring and doing it. Like, I remember we our first day up there, we didn't think it was actually happening. Like, it was like we thought it was canceled because we didn't see anybody there.
Yeah,
we
that's
walked
right.
into
We
the
almost
building,
went home.
Like, there's like this. It was like a smaller building inside this giant building, and it was like an office space. But like we didn't see anybody. We were about to turn around and go home, and then like we're walking around asking like, "Hey, is there wrestling tonight? Is there wrestling tonight?" Like, yeah, they should be started by now, but we didn't see anybody, so we were about to just pack it up and go home. And it wasn't until we were hanging around the side of the building we saw it was Ben Golden. He drove past in his car.
That's right.
So we followed him to where he was going, and then that's where we saw the wrestlers, and we got in the ring and we did this and that. But yeah, it's tough to really get over those first couple days or weeks. Like now it becomes second nature to where like you bump off of something, it doesn't hurt as bad because your body's so conditioned to that. But those first couple days, those first couple weeks, like you're really hurting. Like it's not
you're
like,
probably like one giant callus now, aren't you?
Even like running the ropes, it was weird because like the first couple days, like you did it hurt, really bad. Like you'd go home and you'd leave like you'd have like rope burn on your back. Like, you'd see where the ropes were hitting you, but after a while, it just became like you just became used to it. Same with bumping. If I went like bumping became normal, like, I didn't feel anything like when I get hit, taking a fall in wrestling. But if I went and bumped now, I'd shit my pants. Okay, that's how it would be. I would crap my pants and crap all over the ring. That's exactly what would happen. That's just that was probably.
It's kind of like the last time you were in a ring, huh?
What did I do?
You took that was quite a bump.
Oh yeah,
that was quite a bump.
That's how bad it was.
He can't remember. He's like Taker with that concussion, dude.
Concussions. Yeah.
That's a great question though to bring up for Vince. And obviously you kind of already alluded to some of the injuries you've had while doing wrestling. But have you also had any concussions or anything like that? Because I know it's definitely a big part of it. Wrestling now, I think, is doing a lot better when it comes to wrestler safety, for sure. But
then now,
yeah. But that doesn't mean you're going to be people can get concussions from any sport. So
yeah, I mean, accidents happen. I've had concussions in football. I've had concussions in wrestling. Like, I mean, there's no way around that. Like starting out, like until you're able to do this safely to where you're not going to hurt yourself or others, like injuries are going to happen. And even after you've completed your training and go on the road and stuff, like injuries can happen at any time. I don't think like anybody realizes like it can happen. Like in like near and far, like I've been on shows like 4 or 5 hours away where somebody in the car gets hurt and like everybody's in a panic and like we all have to like rush to the hospital or try to drive home and like it's tough. It's scary. Like I talked about my broken wrist. I had the metal plate in there. Like I could have died, and I didn't realize it until like a couple years later. Like how it happened, I was thrown over the top rope out of the ring, and we didn't have mats on the floor for protection because
Where was this at?
it was in Canada at training. Like, and you're not required to have mats on the floor in Canada. So it was just concrete floor. My other arm became hooked on the ropes. And I threw out my other wrist to try and stop the fall. Had I not done that, like my face, my neck, it would have came straight down on the concrete floor from the drop to the ring. Like I wouldn't be here right now, and I'm very grateful for that.
Wow.
I always
So it's
am
like either a
amazed.
broken wrist or you die. Like
Yeah. I'm always amazed by how wrestlers are able to take, well, not just regular bumps, but that particularly the bump where you're going over the ring, over the ropes. Because I mean that's way farther. I mean I know there's mats at a lot of places now, but it's not like that's going to completely.
Well, it also depends on where you go too, because the rules are different everywhere. There's was it Pennsylvania? You're allowed to put like people can be right alongside of the ring. Like people can be sitting down. Like it just completely surround the ring. No guardrails, no separation on the floor. It's a little crazy. There's like rules are different everywhere.
That all depends on where you go because you wrestle around here. That those are requirements: the guardrails, the mats on the floor, everywhere. But you go into a random place in Tennessee and like there's nothing. There's no protection. There's a beat down ring and that's it. That's all your protection is.
Yeah.
What was your
Like, that's
first
one of
match?
the first things I noticed.
What was the first matches like for you? Were you in these the dingy places, or were you in decent little spots, like little fire halls, or what were your first matches? Do you remember? Is wrestling like that? Does every wrestler remember their first match?
I do. My first matches were great. Not great quality wise because I was still new, but like I was very pampered with where we were trained. Like we had a very comfortable ring, a very comfortable they cared about us there. They protected us. I mean, it's tough to say that because I just talked about how I broke my wrist at that place, but like it was like they treated it well. They treated it professional, and that's where like things come into play where who treats it professional and who doesn't. Like because you go to a place where like they have a professional setup in order to protect the performers and also give the fans a good experience, and then you go to random town A or B and they have nothing. It's just a ring and a blue tarp for an entrance and that's it. Like I've wrestled in a sold out Johnsburg Fire Hall. I've wrestled in the Keenan Center. I've wrestled in great places, and then I've wrestled in outdoors in Michigan where fans are drinking beer out of milk jugs.
Really?
That's how I've always
that's
pictured
different
Michigan.
story for a different time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I've had those bad experiences. I've wrestled in a farmer's market in the middle of Tennessee. Like I've wrestled in some really beat down buildings. So like having those bad experiences makes you more appreciative of the good ones. Like that's why I'm so appreciative and grateful for what we have here in Empire State Wrestling because this is a place that is head and shoulders above the rest in the area, and they take it seriously to protect the performers, to give their fans a good experience, and to grow to be as great as they can be.
Who has been some of your favorite opponents to actually wrestle in the ring?
Oh, it's different because like I base the quality of my matches off of like either my history or bond with them or the chemistry that we have in the ring. Like I've had like the story that Matt and I told we had a feud in 2016 for ESW. Like that gave you closure on your career. That gave me the boost I needed to go to the next level. I feel like we told a great story with that because of our friendship over that time.
Yeah.
So Matt was one of my favorite opponents. I did a year-long program in Erie, Pennsylvania with big time Bill Collier, who is very close to me. He's my brother-in-law. He's one of my best friends.
Criminally underrated.
Dude,
this dude should have been signed years ago.
Johnny, if you've
Johnny,
not ever
I
seen
invite you to
any of
watch.
his,
Go watch it.
go check some of his stuff out on YouTube. You're talking about a big man that can move. He's a big man
just
that
whatever
can move.
Just whatever you do. Well, actually, he makes it good with everybody, but him and Primal Warpath. Go watch those matches. Those are top tier matches. Don't do that.
But no, Bill's somebody that I've always looked up to and respected, and it started with I was turning heel at the time at Erie, Pennsylvania. He was on top. He was their guy. He was their John Cena. He was their hero. But he noted, like, they asked him, like, what do you want to do next? I'd like to work with Vince a bit. He catapulted me to the next level to where, like, to this day, that was one of my favorite things I've ever done in wrestling. It was December of 2016. He was having a heavyweight championship with Omega Aaron Draven, and like the crowd was on their feet. They had him hot the entire match. I'm standing from for the last couple shows. He wanted to build this to where I'm watching his matches from the merch table to where like it's sort of inconspicuous to where once this thing starts, they're not going to see it coming. So he's about to win it. He hits his finisher, and I hop over the guardrail, grab a light tube from out underneath the ring, smash it over his back, and that's Erie, Pennsylvania's last image of professional wrestling for the year. Like me standing tall over him with his blood all over the canvas, like that was what they got.
Nice.
And like what we did was like this is something I'm so high on in wrestling is telling a story and making people believe. Like I love wrestling in Erie, Pennsylvania because they believe that this is real. They'll hang on anything you do. And like that was around the time where we started to feel like, okay, they're not believing as much. Let's give them something to bite into. So we carried that feud on for damn near an entire year, and there was like, it wasn't like just match. We told a damn good story. There was months where we're like,
did you guys do a cage too?
It concluded with the cage match too. Yeah, like it was I could talk for hours about the stuff I've had with Bill, but it's like we went months where we didn't touch. That was the big story. Is like waiting for him to finally get his hands on me, get his revenge for me smashing his light tube over the back and costing his championship. But then we started getting these matches, and like we had a rat cage match to where they brought in a manager for me at the time. They locked him in a rat cage so he couldn't get involved. We had a fans bring the weapons match. It was back and forth with the feud, and then it culminated in the cage match. It was my first cage match at the time, and like I'm very grateful for the stuff that I had with Bill. Like to where like a couple of years pass and we're wrestling again. I look at him, I was like, we never really wrestled. Anything we've done has been weapons and all this nonsense, like trying to kill each other. But like, I feel like that was one of those big feuds that really took me to it. He taught me how to tell a good story. Bill's one of my biggest influences in wrestling. Like I said, he's my brother. He's one of my best friends. And like, he and I could talk wrestling for hours. And like, that's one of my most fondest memories in wrestling is the stuff that Bill and I did in Erie. But like the stuff with Matt, the stuff with Bill, like that, those are stories. Those are my history. Those are like stuff that I look back on fondly. But like, there's guys also too that I'm able to have like good in-ring chemistry with, to where like I can see my name on a card next to them and know that we're going to have a great match. We're going to tear it down because like that's just the chemistry we built together. Like Brandon Thurston is one of those guys. He and I have done a series of matches in the South Towns for Southern Tier Wrestling. And like those matches I'm very appreciative of. Brandon has always pushed me to that next level, to push me past my own limits, to where I didn't feel like I was going to be able to get through those matches. We've gone 35, 45 minutes with the matches, and like it's told a good story of like good versus evil. Like we like those matches are something I always look fond on. Another one is Cloudy. I love Cloudy. I have nothing but great things to say about him. He's someone that's very undervalued, very underrated in this area. He's done some great things, and we're very blessed to have him here at ESW. Like that's someone I'll wrestle any day of the week. I've always enjoyed. We've done singles matches, tag matches.
Cloudy's wonderful.
He's the best. He's such a gem. He's easy to work with. He can have a great match. And he's someone I'll wrestle any day of the week.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of guys that I feel like I've had great matches, great moments, great stories with in my time wrestling.
Nice.
And real quick, before we kind of get to talk about the guys on your shirt, what was maybe the strangest and oddest thing that's ever happened to you in wrestling or because of wrestling? You got any weird like fan interactions or anything like that?
You want me to open my inbox here? Because I got a few.
Hey, I sent those anonymously.
Fans are weird. Fans are a little different. Yeah, it's. I've had some weird interactions.
It's always weird. It just seems normal after like at a certain point, because
you get used to it. It's like, okay, I'm wrestling. This is the kind of stuff that I open myself up for.
I used to get friend requests from like fans, like personal friend requests, and they used to be on my timeline and just stalking me. One guy offered to live with me when I had a bunch of roommates move out. Like, you'd be surprised how strange. I mean, Johnny, I know you're a big star with Retro Bliss and all that. You might get some stuff like that, but pro wrestling, man, it's
no, nobody wants to be around me. I've never had a single person say they want to be around me in any sort of way.
I once had a fan message me from Utah. He's a 61-year-old man named Wayne, and he wanted me to send me photos of myself in a Speedo because he wanted to have a private match with me.
What?
But since that day, I've gotten messages like that. Some of these fans are really out there. Some of these fans are the most loyal and great people you'll ever meet. And then you encounter some real weirdos. Like some of them, like I get the ones like, and they get blocked. That's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get ones that'll send me messages, send me friend requests, and then they'll delete it and send another one, thinking that I like, oh, maybe he'll accept it this time. It's like, no, like I try to keep a distance from you. Like I understand they pay their hard-earned money to see these wrestlers and be around these people, but they need to understand, when the show ends, we go back to our normal lives.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not
But
trying to have them follow you to your
a,
normal life.
Yeah,
I'm all about talking with fans on social media and that stuff, but some of them need to know like when it's appropriate and when it's not. Like 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, like that's that. Like, come on, like I'm getting up for work at that time. I really don't want to see pictures of you or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I've had weird interactions with fans. I've also had weird interactions in the ring, like crazy interactions. I once had a plastic bag tied around my face in the middle of the wrestling ring. I didn't think I was going to live after that.
What? From a fan?
Yeah. No, from a wrestler.
Oh, from
that was
what, a bag over the head?
For a second, I was like, did a fan run in there?
It's a great time. I'm still
From
breathing.
a fan?
Wouldn't surprise me if a fan tried that stuff. It's actually at that show too, where there was that fan that had the stuffed animals, and she would like play with them like they were her kids, like they were like watching the show.
Toronto, weird place, real strange. Like I mean, I should have known when Rob Ford was their governor and he was doing lines of coke and stuff that all their population would be just shot. But no, I mean, I guess because we're going to change up the format a little bit. I guess we can. I wouldn't mind sharing some like stories and stuff. From mine and Vince's experiences. Me and Vince have been on the road. Like we're on the road all the time. We were a tag team very briefly.
Don't look us up.
No, don't look us up. Top Guns. We were the Top Guns because when we first came into training, our nicknames were Maverick and he was Goose. Even though he never rode out with the Goose name, he went with Invincible.
I hated it so much.
It was bad.
But when we started training, they wouldn't call anybody by the real names. They gave everybody nicknames. What did we have? We had Grimace. We had Rerun,
Creamsicle, H&R Puffin stuff. Yeah. That was one of the other ones we had.
There was always these silly nicknames, and everybody
hated them. Funyuns. Funyuns. It was pretty wild, but yeah, we had a lot of that. That's almost like the best part of being like a pro wrestler is like for us, like how crazy our personal lives are. Like me and Vince are always going to be like this, but with how crazy our personal lives were, the road trips are like the best part of it. And me and Vince spent a lot of times on the road, pranking people. We shoved a donut in one of our friends' was it me? I did it, right? Was it Ish's car? Yeah, it was Ish's car. Our friend Ish's car. I shoved a donut in his gas tank.
Oh God!
Up in Canada, and he drove the entire way home with it.
There's a lot of people that those are the memories I look back on fondly the most is like the road trip memories, the time that you spend outside of the ring. Like I talked about the great matches, moments inside the ring, and the stories you've been able to tell. But there's plenty of stories like on the road at the after parties or just hanging with the boys. That like the camaraderie is like,
and they never will.
These are stories that we can never tell, but like those are the memories that I'm always gonna love. Like being on the road with you guys, like Rex or Lakeem always sleeping or
we have this friend named Lakeem. Chris, you've been to a few ESW shows. Roscoe Black.
Okay, yeah.
Huge, scary dude.
Yeah,
but
big
just
time.
so funny, so peaceful. Always something with food with him.
There was a time we were crossing the border to go to Toronto, and you're not going to get through this one, are you?
I might not.
We get pulled over to go inside and at the border patrol, and Lakeem reaches over the counter and starts using the security guard's cocoa butter.
the border patrol's cocoa butter.
Without asking, he was like, "I'm just going to go ahead and use this here."
Oh, you don't mess with border patrol,
man.
man.
And we were like, "Yeah."
He didn't care.
No.
We got pulled over because we didn't. We lied about our trainer.
Yeah. And then we decided like we're not going to drop names here.
No, we're not. No.
We decided we got over to Canada. We're like, you know what? Screw this. We don't want to go to the show. So we go to a Canadian Walmart, get a bunch of snacks, and we go back to Ish Jones' house, and he makes us up fried chicken for lunch, and we played
WWE 14 or something like that.
Yeah, we did the King of Ring tournament. I think it was Virgil.
We had been through so much. It was so much on that road trip, and it was just literally going over the border to Canada.
Like, those are some of the most fun road trips I've had. Like someone else I always love traveling with is Super Beast. Like he's such a gem of a human being, such of a gem of a wrestler. Like one of the most undervalued minds in this business. He's one of my best friends. I'm like being on the road with him as often as I have. It's never a dull time. Like it's very entertaining.
He's amazing. There was one time I was driving with him, and oh god, we run the throughway on the 90 coming. I think we were coming back home from Albany, and he pulls over into a rest stop, a very well populated rest stop. It's like 1-2 o'clock in the morning, and we're all pumped up because this coming back from the show. This is the show that I think Terry Funk was not on the show, but we all talked about Terry Funk, and everybody loves the famous Terry Funk, promo after he won and yelling forever. So he's driving around this parking lot full of tourists from all over the world driving in cars and just yelling forever. He's just circling the parking lot. Forever. That's the kind of guys you want to be around, though. There's the fun ones. There's people who take themselves way too seriously, and it's like it's miserable to be like life's hard enough, man. And you get to be around people like that. People we've been on the road with, and they really make it. And luckily for me, like even though I'm not really involved with pro wrestling anymore, not as much as I used to be. I'm still tight with those guys,
Yeah.
and I think that's the best part in all of that. Is that,
That's the
like
part that I
legit,
value
like
most from wrestling is
lifelong friendships.
You
That
make these lifelong friends. Like my friends outside of wrestling, I can't like I'll see them maybe like weddings, funerals. That's it. I don't see them very often, and that sucks because those are the people that I grew up with. But like once you get into wrestling, like these are your friends. This is your family now. These are the people that you're going to see every weekend. So you better get used to them or just get out.
Yeah. I think that's
Without a doubt.
always been it's always been the allure for me because like I've always loved wrestling, grew up with it, but for me I always felt that was the attraction, was the camaraderie, was the and you hear about the road trips, those kinds of things, and it's always like, I mean, cuz I love road trips anyway. So anytime I get a chance to get on the road, it's you already know you're going to have a good time if the person riding with you is going to have a good time as well.
Yeah.
So when you're traveling around and you're doing these things, you're hitting shows, right? So when you do shows, a lot of independent shows bring in old school legends, up and coming, the hottest up and coming indie guys. So for you, Vince, like who are some of the most memorable guys that you've worked with, that were, maybe some of the older legends that you were just like, man, this guy was great. I enjoyed working with him.
Oh boy, that really comes back to Empire State Wrestling for me. Like the promoter Brett Mendick, like, he's always taken such good care of me. He's provided me with such great opportunities. I'm like, I wouldn't be who I am right now if it weren't for Brett and providing me with the platform to do what I love and like be successful with it. So like he's always had faith in me and believed in me enough to be able to have these matches with these kind of people. So
you've had a few really good ones.
yeah, like even you and I, we had that 6-man tag. It was
Hornswoggle.
with Hornswoggle. We teamed with Hornswoggle. It was
Hey.
Tastes like chicken.
it was a 6-man tag. It was myself, Matt, and Hornswoggle against the patron saints of professional wrestling. It was on my birthday actually, to where
That's
Matt,
right.
Matt turned on me. That was in the middle of our feud there.
Yeah, you pushed me.
But guys like that, he was fun to work with. A year later, I had the opportunity to team with MVP at ESW in Niagara Falls. So like that was a huge moment for me. Like this is somebody that I looked up to, grew up watching on TV. It's like, wow, I'm sure in the ring with this guy right now. I'm teaming with him. This was awesome. And you encounter these kind of legends, and some of them are like they keep their distance. They just want to be themselves and get their money and move on. But like that's like MVP. He was one of the boys. He wanted to be there. He wanted to do stuff. He wanted to make sure that he could put on the best show he could for the audience that paid to see him. And then there was, I think it was this past year in Salamanca, and those are some of the most fun shows because of the environment, because of the fans that believe, and the fans that some of those towns, they don't get wrestling very often. So when it comes to town, it's a big deal for them. We make that stop in Salamanca, New York every year, and it's a big deal. They're very grateful of it. Those fans are amazing, and it's such a fun time. It's like, not that we don't treat it with professionalism, but it's a chance for the boys to let loose and lay back to a little bit. Like, not like we're putting on bad matches, but we're able to have a little fun. Like the production guy, Jonathan Ash, he'll rib us with an old Legends theme or like screw with our music or stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
It's a fun time. But this past year I was able to team with Nunzio there against Killer Instinct, and he was fun. He was a good time. I was looking forward to that one, but like we get there and it's freezing, it's raining, and he's like, you know what, let's put this match together. Let's go sit in the car with the heat on and do it. Like, while everybody else is outside freezing outside the trailer, like, let's go sit in the car and call the match. And it was a fun time. It was cool to be around. But like I said, those matches wouldn't be possible. Those moments wouldn't be possible if it weren't for Brett believing in me and giving me the opportunity to perform for ESW. Like, ESW is my home. It's always going to be my home. It's something that like I always look forward to. It's something I've had my best memories at. So like,
yeah. So we're about to close up here. We're about to finish up here. We've been going strong. Now, for you, Vince, as a professional, is there anybody currently out there in the world of pro wrestling, whether it's WWE, AEW, somebody local, somebody major independent, Ring of Honor, anything like that? Is there one person, and it can only be one person, that you want to have the opportunity to wrestle before you hang it up?
oh boy. See, this is the thing. Like, anything
It's tough. It's tough.
like I I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. So I like WB is, for any wrestling is always the goal, but it doesn't happen for everybody. Like I just recently had the opportunity to do extra work and be backstage for WWE. You had that opportunity. It was a learning
I
experience.
did, yeah.
But more so, it was a learning experience, and it's also something you could check off the bucket list. Because if this never happens, I can at least say I did that. I was back there, like, and that comes full circle for me because as I was a kid, my dad would take me to those shows at the HSBC Arena, and to be able to sit backstage at one of those shows and learn and be a part of it, like that was cool for me. It's like, wow, like this is finally happening. I used to come to these shows when I was a kid, and now I'm here. Stuff like that, and like the guys I mentioned, the ones I've been able to wrestle, like those are like memories I look back on fondly. Like anything I've wanted to do, anybody I've wanted to wrestle in wrestling, like I've done that. I've been a part of it long enough to where anybody I've saw and thought, okay, I want to wrestle that guy, I've wrestled him. Like from RJ City to Cody Diener to Ethan Page to
You wrestled
my best
Pepper
friend
as well, too,
I wrestled
right?
Pepper
Yep,
Parks,
Pepper
I wrestled
Parks, the
Tyson
Blade.
Dukes, yeah, all these guys, and like we've had great matches. And even more recently, like so the program I just recently got finished up doing at ESW was sort of to usher in the new era against the old timers. And like when all those guys retired, the Will Calrissians, Johnny Pumas, Kevin Grace, Chris Cooper, it was heartbreaking because I was like, man, like these guys are leaving, and I never got the chance to wrestle them. But like I said, Brett always takes care of us. He was lucky enough to pitch the idea of them coming back to give us those matches that we never thought would be possible. So like with that, I can say that I've wrestled anybody that I wanted to wrestle.
Okay.
I guess this is a way to segue into what we're going to talk about next. Is like it obviously never would have been possible. It's only in my dreams, but like he's no longer with us. But the guy on my T-shirt, Eddie Guerrero, is my favorite wrestler of all time. Like if I would have ever gotten the chance to not even wrestle him, but like to share a locker room with him, that would have meant everything to me.
Wow.
But like thinking of that too, like something that's a little more realistic and still a little more of a possibility is like Chavo's still out there. He's still wrestling a little bit. So like that's somebody I want to like not only wrestle in the ring and learn from, but be able to talk to, and like with his experiences of living with Eddie and being a part of that family. Like I'd love to be able to talk with him and pick his brain. So for me, it's Chavo Guerrero.
Okay.
There you go.
Very
there
good.
You go.
Very
yeah,
good.
I think originally we were going to be discussing a specific Eddie Guerrero match, but this episode is actually pretty. It's a pretty full episode. But what it made me want to do though, Vince, is we want to do a whole episode devoted to Eddie, and it feels only natural that you should be a guest on that as well. So we're just discussing nothing but Eddie and matches and his life and all that stuff. Dude, it was so awesome to have you on.
Cool,
dude.
because like. Oh, you're cutting me off, Dan.
No. Go ahead.
No, but it was so cool because you messaged me and said we were going to talk about Eddie and Lesnar. I was like, man, that's awesome. I just watched that match last night. I just watched it the first DVD that he had last night. It was the Cheating, Death, Stealing Life DVD, and like
Nice.
watching that was tough for me because like if you ever watch that back, it's really like scary foreshadowing because that was released a year before he passed, and they're interviewing some of these guys about the problems that Eddie had in his career, and like. Dean Malenko says, I don't want to wake up one day and find a message that my friend is dead in a hotel room.
Yeah.
And then like 2 minutes later, JR talks about like Eddie has a problem. We had to approach him about it in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Wow. Like
Yeah.
you talk about the hotel room in Minneapolis. Like that's how this happened. And a year later, sure enough, that's what happens. Like, wow, that hit hard. It put me to tears. But like the conclusion of that DVD was Eddie versus Lesnar. And like to watch that match, such a great story. And I could talk about that match for hours. Obviously, we're on a limited time here, so like, yeah, man, I'm all for doing an Eddie episode. Like, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. He's my biggest inspiration. So, like, I'm really grateful and appreciative that you guys were able to have me on. Like I said, I thought this was gonna be done after you guys had Gullo on, but
no way.
I hope I didn't kill Hardly Kayfabe for anybody, but this is a very fun experience for me.
No, I loved having you here. I can't speak for the other two boys, but I loved having you on, man. It was awesome. Great I mean, I love always hearing that. You hear the background behind wrestlers, you hear their experiences, and a lot of times they'll be kind of the same, right? Oh, I had road experiences, or this was my first time training, but it's always different. There's always something that it's always unique to hear a specific person's experience, dude. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It was awesome, and we're definitely having you back for the Eddie episode.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for hanging out. It was a good time.
So, what about you boys? You guys have anything else to say before we kick it off here?
I think
I got one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm good.
Well, alrighty.
We should let Vince pimp out his stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I don't know if people have noticed, but I don't know where it's at. It's either going to be here or here. You can see his shirts you can get.
Yep.
So Vince, please tell people where they can go get your shirts or your merch at.
Yeah, we're on Pro Wrestling Tees. Search up Vince Valor on there, and the great thing about that right now is there's a Memorial Day sale going on. So I think it's until tomorrow. Actually, you can use the code Memorial and get 20% off. Like, I got some cool shirts on there. A lot of them I could probably get in trouble for is ripping off like WWE and the Incredibles and all these trademark logos, but like that's what's in nowadays.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well,
So,
to
yeah,
be
there's
fair,
some cool shirts on there. Appreciate it if anybody buys them.
well, to be fair, WWE rips off other things. I mean, the Revolt.
Yeah.
That's
That's all it's all about. Yeah, make sure you check out his stuff. Hit out his Twitter. It's Vince Valor 31. His Instagram, Vinstagram 31. And like he said, Pro Wrestling Tees. It's Vince Valor 31, I believe, is the extension on that. Dude, thanks so much for being on the show. Guys, thanks so much for watching the live stream. If you're watching the live stream, and if you're listening, thanks so much for listening. As always, this is Chris Chavez closing it out for Johnny Townsend and Matt Johnson. If we've got nothing else to do, let's take it home, boys.